Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Britt Simon here. Happy Saturday morning for you. I've been very confused with the days of the week this week. Feels odd with the New Year's Day and New Year's Eve and everything. We had kind of a quiet New Year's Eve, much more quiet than usual. But about the most exciting thing that happened to me over the last few days was hitting 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So I appreciate all of you that have subscribed. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. That became just recently. That became kind of a mini goal for me, and to hit that before the end of the year and before the new year was kind of fun. Thank you for that. So let's I'm sure you've got loads of questions. So let's say good morning to some of you. Good morning, Confusion. Hi, Uncle B. Good morning, Bettini. Good morning. Hi, Joe. How you doing? Where are we? Here we go. There's Joe. Welcome back to all of you. Okay, so let's just see if we've got some questions here. Good morning from Berlin. Any chance of the State Department resuming DV application this year? Seahawk Jr., the process is continuing. What problems do we have at the moment? Well, obviously Trump is invading other countries. That's not great. That's kind of a nuisance, although it might be kind of good for Venezuelan selectees. I don't know, maybe they'll be allowed into the lottery now, but who knows? But apart from that sort of craziness going on, we also have the travel ban on 39 countries. And we have the pause, right? So when we talk about resuming DV application this year, we have to be sort of pretty specific about the parts we mean, right? For the travel ban, I don't think we're going to see the travel ban removed anytime soon. I think we could easily see the travel ban in place until the end of DV 2026, and perhaps beyond that point. That will be absolutely heartbreaking situation for many people. It impacts mostly. The travel ban mostly impacts Africa and Asia. Asia loses basically half of its selectees, right? So it's a massive impact to Asia, and it means mathematically that Asia couldn't reach its quota. Literally couldn't reach its quota. Asia is now current in the visa bulletin. The number says 30,000, but we now know, as we sort of pretty much knew, that the highest selectee number in Asia is only 27,000 something, right? So by putting the number at 30,000, they're saying current without actually saying the word current. It's what I call de facto current. Okay. Africa has a massive impact as well. Not as many applicants as a percentage compared to Asia, but still a massive number of people in Africa are affected. So Africa will probably go current. So we now know that there are case numbers up to 103,000 or so. And so I expect Africa to go current, frankly. Given normal processing. That all is because of the travel ban in place. And when Africa and Asia go current and still underfill, which they'll underfill, they won't be able to use all their quota. Those unused visas, if that underfilling happens early enough during the year, those unused visas could be used by other regions. And so we could see higher case numbers getting lucky in Europe, Oceania, and South America, right? Those other three big regions big compared to North America, right? Those other three regions could enjoy the underused visas from Africa. Now, Africa always tends to struggle filling its capacity anyway, because it takes a lot of interviews to be arranged in Africa in order to yield the right number of approved cases. A lot of, in previous years, we've seen, many thousands of people arranged, and people don't turn up for interviews, or they're denied at the interview, and so on. And so it's hard to give away all the visas in Africa. Whereas Asia, if Iran is performing, Asia can easily hit its quota and exceed its quota if allowed to do so. Normally, not this year, because Iran is blocked and also several other large countries are blocked by the travel ban. So then the other side of the coin, and probably what you're talking about, CEAC Junior, is probably the pause, right? The pause is a separate conversation to the travel ban, but I wanted to explain some of the impacts of the travel ban first. The pause is clearly a pause. If you don't understand that yet, I don't think you've been listening. So the pause was introduced, around about December 18th by Kristi Noem. It was then confirmed on the 19th by the Department of State. A spokesperson for the Department of State confirmed that, and there was reporting about that. Marco Rubio had also done a press conference where he had spoken very briefly, amongst many other things. He spoke very briefly and said, explained why a pause might happen, why Kristi Noem had done that. But at that press conference, he didn't confirm, unlike was said by a notable lawyer. He did not confirm in that press conference that the pause was on. That confirmation came later from a spokesperson. And then over that weekend, we saw impacts of the pause. And then on the 23rd of December, we saw an announcement about the pause, right? All the while, the announcement of the pause from Noem, who's a lunatic, a stupid woman, and Marco Rubio, who's not stupid, but but a bit of a I mean, I respect the guy in terms of his intelligence, etc., but I don't particularly like him, shall we say? The language used in the two announcements was definitely about a temporary pause period. It describes the need for a review of the procedures and that sort of thing, but it does not say anything like we've ended the program or the program will be finished or whatever. And then the other sort of piece of the puzzle fell into place around about the 29th of December when we started to see 2NLs going out. So these are 2NLs going out for February cases. So they're still scheduling people. They're telling people to go and get their medical. They're telling people to turn up for the interview in February. And they've told those people that since the pause was introduced, right? They didn't have to say, we're going to schedule people. They didn't have to notify those people. They didn't have to tell those people to go and spend money on medicals and that sort of thing, but they've done that. That tells me very, very clearly, including the announcements, that the pause is going to be temporary. Some of you act like the sky is falling with regard to the pause, and I don't know what it is, but I keep saying it's temporary. I've explained why it's going to be temporary, what evidence we have to suggest it's temporary, and temporary it will be, okay? Now, how long it will last, I don't know, but I tend to think something in the 30 to 60 day region, right? Something around about that. That would be around about mid to late February. I would expect to see it gone, right? And that by that time we would have issuances happening. The only thing that's not happening right now, by the way, is issuances. Interviews are continuing right now. Scheduling is continuing. Processing is continuing. All of that stuff is happening. The only thing that's not happening is issuances. So if you have a scheduled interview, you can go to the scheduled interview. You can go through the whole process and you'll be verbally approved. And then they'll tell you you're going to be on 221G until the pause is lifted. I personally would attend the interview on that basis because, it makes sense to be first in line when the pause is lifted. And I believe the pause will be lifted. Right, so I would attend my interview now, knowing what we know now. I would attend my interview if it was scheduled in January or February. I would attend it. I would plan to attend it. Yes, the time. The other piece of evidence, by the way, is by telling people to get their medicals done. That's impactful. That's important because the medical starts the clock, a 6-month clock of when your visa will be valid until. Right, and so if somebody is told to go do the medical in January, their visa will, once it's printed, let's say that it's printed in March, the validity of that visa will be shorter than normal because of the January medical, right? It'll be timed as 6 months after the medical. Again, you wouldn't do that to people if you thought this was going to be a temporary pause, because that's going to cause other problems like having to repeat medicals and that sort of thing. It creates more systemic problems by doing that, and they're not interested in breaking the system. So, the pause will be over. The question is when. If it goes 30 days, if it goes even 60 days, it really isn't that impactful. And while they're doing interviews, it's not going to impact the year very much. If they had chosen not to do interviews, that would have been a different scenario, but they're doing interviews. And so that doesn't really impact the year's progress. And the other question that people often have is, will the visa bulletin move during this time? I think it probably will, yes. I don't know 100% sure, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the visa bulletin move because, again, the pause is a temporary pause. Okay, so that's the full explanation for you. I hope that sort of explains it, Seahawk Jr., and hopefully other people who will have the same question. I'm going to be asked this a million times today. Hopefully they've been listening to that too. Okay, can a recent green card holder that got a green card but was from a banned country travel? Yes, absolutely. You've got your green card, or even if you don't have your green card, you can still travel. If you're a lawful permanent resident, an LPR, so let's say you entered in December, you haven't got your green card yet, but the visa stamped in your passport says that there's a little text in there, a little message in there. Every visa has this. It says, upon endorsement, serves as evidence of I-551 status or something. I can't remember exactly what it says. But every visa has that stamped on it. And so when you enter the country for the first time, that visa becomes endorsed, right? And that is your evidence to show that you are a lawful permanent resident. The lawful permanent resident is the correct status. The green card is simply an identification card that comes later. The green card itself is not that important. The status is what's important, and that's shown by that visa you have. If you are an LPR, you're not affected by the travel bans. Okay, so that's a simple thing. Big U with the camera blur. Yeah, I know. Sorry about that, but I've had to buy a new camera and stuff. My camera was playing up the other day. It just stopped, so I've had to buy a new one. So I'm using the laptop camera. So apologies for that. Thank you for that, EM Simmons. Okay, let's see. Happy New Year, and thank you for the helpful information. You're welcome. DV21, DV when a hope ended just like that. Yeah, DV21 is over. I still today get people asking me almost every week, is DV 2020 or DV 2021, is it going to continue? It's surprising to me that people are still asking that question, because I've made it really, really clear. When we lost the appeal, finally, the appeal was lost, meaning that preserved visas could no longer be issued, right? That was the end of the game. That was the final whistle. That was the end of the game. And there is nothing more that can happen. The appeals court has ruled and said that visas cannot be issued after the end of the year. So that's it. We're done. We did achieve big wins in DV 2020 and 2021. In DV 2020, we got at least 7,000 people through in September of 2020. In DV 2021, there was another big blockage, and we got that process through. But what we did not benefit from is what we hoped to benefit from, was the preservation of visas after the end of the year, and that is the piece that the court ruled on the appeal, and that's the end of it. So DV21 and DV 2020, they're over. I'm afraid there's nothing else that can be done. There's literally nothing that can be done. Okay. Why some countries get 2NL for interview for February and some not? And is there a chance that they can receive early this month in a few days? Right. So in general, the 2NLs in December came out much later than normal. I hesitate to say that was because of the pause. It may have been because of the pause, but really, the whole thing was sort of delayed in December. The announcement of the lottery period was delayed, and then we had Kristi Noem's statement. So I think that there was some sort of impact of KCC saying, "Oh shit, Kristi Noem's said we're not sending out. We've paused DV lottery. We won't send out these 2NLs." But even before her announcement, there seems to have been a slight pause in place. There seems to have been a delay by a day or two. And so, it's interesting. I don't know quite what happened behind the scenes. But anyway, the whole 2NL process for February interviews was delayed until later. Now, will it continue into the first few days of this month? Maybe. We'll have to see. Monday or Tuesday, maybe we'll get some more 2NLs. I don't know for sure. I have no way of knowing, right? Why do some countries get 2NLs and some countries not? Well, every single embassy is entitled to set their capacity. And numerous lawsuits have challenged this. And the government have been very firm on it, and the courts have supported the government's perspective. The individual embassy cannot be forced to make their capacity available to DV lottery or to do anything for DV lottery cases. In particular, they are free to prioritize their work how they feel they want to prioritize. Now, if they've got all of their staff off sick, or they've got a local, political instability or something like that, they won't take any cases, right? They won't publish why they're not taking cases. So we have no idea. We have no inside information why they're not taking cases. But we could have an embassy that just refuses to take cases. Yaoundé in Cameroon, for example, at the moment, I don't believe they've taken a single case this year. And there's nothing we can do about that. We unfortunately can't do a damn thing. And it's worse these days because there's two things that make it worse. Number one is the new policy that says you have to interview where you live, right? Or perhaps your home nationality country, but basically they want you to interview where you live. And it's become much more difficult to move your embassy. And now the second blow is that we won't have good information anymore about the backlogs building in various embassies. We're not going to have very good information because of the change they've made to the CEAC data. That's going to blind us, right? And so we won't have very good information. For that reason, thank you, Zarth. I just saw your message there. For that reason, since we're going to be, blinded, I put out on the Telegram channel this morning, and I will publish a list of Telegram channels and WhatsApp channels and that sort of thing, because I think people can support themselves a little bit during this time while we don't have information. Now, maybe in the future we'll get CEAC data back. I don't know. I'm not very hopeful. I think Zarthisius may have gone into semi-retirement, because we're not going to get very much data. I'll show you in a few moments what will happen with the CEAC data. But if we don't have that data, we don't have very good, reliable, really concrete information about which embassies have backlogs, etc. And in that world, I think localized Telegram groups, WhatsApp groups, and that sort of thing, as long as there's no scumbags in those groups that try and take advantage of people and try and charge money for help and all that sort of thing. If I hear about any of that shit, I will ban you from my life instantly. If I hear that you are someone who is trying to charge people to make money from them because you try and pretend you're some sort of localized expert, fuck you if you do that, and I will do everything I can do to make sure you don't have a successful time. I don't charge for any of my time. I don't think any of us should charge for any of the time. I don't like these YouTube channels that charge for stupid things like guide me in programs and moronic programs like that, run by idiots who are just a little bit less idiotic than the people they're trying to advise. Because if you give that person $20 a month or whatever that bullshitter wanted for the guide me in program, whatever it is, if you give that person money, you're a bloody fool, because that guy is just regurgitating information he's received from me and others, and making it sound like he's got all the information. You're a bloody fool if you listen to it. So, but localized channels where people are helping each other to get information about what level the embassy, how many interviews have taken place this month or whatever. That's going to be useful information. Okay, I'll show you a couple of good examples of it. Actually, let me just show you right now. Let me get the yes. I always pronounce it wrong. Let me just let me put this up there. So for some years now, no, I don't want to be in. Well, either way, it doesn't matter. For some years, the Turkish forums have been sort of pretty useful in capturing information and providing information to each other. And so there's a forum called Yesilak, I think it is, Yesilkart, or I don't know. You pronounce it. My Turkish is not good. But this information here is a really accurate tracking of all the cases going through the Ankara embassy. And not just Ankara embassy cases, but also Turks in various places. So they've been free to add their information to this spreadsheet. They've gathered all this information, and they track which cases have been approved, which have been scheduled, and so on. Really good information from this website. And frankly, Ankara is now doing really well. I'm not saying it's doing well because of the spreadsheet, but it's nice to see Ankara doing so well. And Ankara has been a bloody nightmare for the last few years of not scheduling people and not keeping up with all of its work. Well, now, probably largely because the Iranians are under the travel ban, it seems like Ankara have stepped up their efforts. And for Turkish cases, Ankara is now performing very, very well. And you can see that, in detail by looking at this data. And so if other countries have, good little forums where they're tracking, okay, you got your 2NL, what case number are you? And they're tracking what case number you've got to, then at least those communities will know within themselves, what embassies are backlogged, etc., and may be able to do something locally. I don't know. So I'm a little bit cautious about these groups. Sometimes they're started by idiots that just see it as a chance to become personally famous and powerful or whatever in some mini way. I don't understand it really, but as long as it's not that, and as long as it's to help others within that country, then great. Share information. That's useful. Okay. Any update for the pause? Yeah, I gave that. Hi, Simon. DV26 approved case. Visa not printed. I need to travel with my tourist visa in March for a conference I've been doing for the last 14 years. Any peoples at entry? Any peoples? Any problems? I think you're probably saying at entries. You've got the visa not printed, right? So you've presumably taken your passport back then, right? I need to travel with my tourist visa in March. So you don't mention where you're traveling to, but it sounds like you might be traveling to America. America won't stop you from coming in if you've got your passport and you've got your previous visa. But it's obviously important that you get your visa back from the embassy if you haven't already got it. You can't just travel on the visa, right? You have to have your passport too. But no problems. You're allowed to enter the USA until you have that visa from the embassy. Now, the approved DV lottery visa is an immigration visa. So when that is printed, your next entry has to be through that basis. But while you're in 221G, which is probably what you're in right now, you're not approved yet. So they verbally approved you, but they haven't given you the visa. That means you're not approved. Therefore, your other method of entry, your non-immigrant visa or ESTA or whatever you've got, those are still appropriate to use. Okay. Okay. Additionally, I'm from a banned country traveling on a non-banned passport. Oh, fuck. Oh, non-banned passport. Oh, sorry. Okay. Does DV visa have to be printed on the non-banned passport to travel to the US? Yes. Yes, you have to travel on the non-banned passport. Yes, you'll be okay, but you have to travel on the non-banned passport. There is, by the way, there was a memo put out the other day that shows they're going to start to clamp down on what they call CBI CBI process. So if you can buy nationality in a country by a business investment or something like that, and therefore you get a nationality, that is a method that some people through the travel ban have been obtaining a second nationality and a second passport by doing an investment in a country. The government is starting to clamp down on that, and they will probably implement some measures to stop treating those cases as being legitimate second nationality cases. So they want the travel ban to be in place. So if you have a second nationality because you already had it before, then you'll probably be okay. But if you go to an interview and you've recently obtained a nationality in order to get over the travel ban, that might start to become a problem. We'll have to wait and see how that is implemented. What's my prediction? Will there be an increase in Europe? I don't really know, but I suspect there will be an increase in Europe, yes. And I suspect there'll be a big increase in Africa. There'll be no further increases in Asia, of course, because it's current. Actually, it'd be quite funny if they keep on raising the number. But at some point, they'll have to be honest that it is current. It's just very rare for them to make it current this early in the year. But yes, I think it will still go up. Congratulations on the 100K. Just a quick question. Is it true that traveling ban will be lifted after 6 months? I mean, does under partial suspension? No, we can't. So firstly, whether your country is on the list of the 19 countries that were fully banned, or the 20 countries, or the 12 countries, I think, that were originally fully banned, or on the partial ban, as far as DV lottery is concerned, either way, you're fully banned. Right. So there are 39 countries, not 19, not 12, not the 20 or whatever. There are 39 countries that are fully banned as far as DV lottery is concerned, because immigrant visas are banned. Right. And also people traveling under documents issued by the Palestinian Authority as well. So those are fully banned. Right. Will the travel ban be lifted? As a broad category, no, I don't think it'll be lifted. If individual countries of those 39, maybe during this next few months, we might see some of those countries coming off. But, there's not a lot of pressure that can be put on this president and this administration. They basically don't give a monkeys about the normal norms, right? Look at what they've just done in Venezuela. Trump is a useful idiot as far as people surrounding him are concerned. The oil industry and various business interests wanted Trump to take action in Venezuela. The Venezuela sort of alternative leader, who was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize in September, I think it was. In October. I think she got the Peace Prize in October. Dedicated her Peace Prize to Trump as a very public ass-kissing exercise. And that obviously impressed Trump. Trump had obviously been behind the scenes since about September, attacking these Venezuelan boats without permission from US Congress, without really any sensible justification, in open waters 2,000 miles away from America, saying that was to protect Americans, like little boats 2,000 miles away from the shores of America. We had to blow these boats up and kill these people. And if they weren't dead enough, then we'd fire more missiles and kill them a bit more. We had to do all of that, right? Because they were about to land on the shores of Miami or something in 2,000 miles. But he was doing all that without any permission from Congress, no oversight from Congress, etc. Nobody's reining him in. So we are pretty unrestrained in terms of his power, because nobody's reining him in. He's unrestrained at the moment, and God only knows what he could do next, right? But why would he remove the travel bans that he's already put in place? Who's holding him back? I did notice a couple of the countries, like Mali or a couple of little countries, banned US citizens from traveling into their country. That was quite funny. like you think that anybody's going to be bothered about that. You know, so no, Trump doesn't give a damn, doesn't give a monkeys. And so he will continue to ban countries or to hold them in banned position if he feels he wants to do that. And apparently nobody's going to stop him. Yeah, it's right, really weird. I'm afraid DV27 will never start. Yeah, because you're not listening. I keep telling you, DV 2027 will start. It will start. Okay, just relax about that. Eagerly waiting to hear from you. Good. Thank you, Susan. Hope all is well, says Lucas. Did you see the US CIS memo? Interesting information with a 90-day goal. No, I didn't see that one, actually. Sorry. I saw another memo from US CIS. The 90 days, you may be referring to the same one I did see, but I haven't seen it in specifically about the DV lottery thing. So, Lucas, if you can ping me that, I'd be grateful. Thank you. Any new information regarding DV26? Well, I mean, that's what we're here to discuss. Yeah. Correction problems. Don't know. What if Dems take both houses back? Okay, so so the problem with the Democrats is that they lack balls. They don't have cojones for some reason. I don't understand why. Trump and the people around him are really unencumbered by normal behavioral sort of concerns. They don't care. I mean, Trump could literally, he famously said he could shoot someone in the middle of New York and nobody would say a damn thing and he wouldn't lose any votes. And he's probably right. He was certainly right at the time. And he's gone on to sort of test that theory many times. And that's fire. And you have to fight fire with fire, right? You can't fire it. You can't fight at someone who doesn't give a monkeys about what you think. Whether you're whether you're making a reasoned argument and everything else, you can't fight that with reasonable argument. You have to fight that with someone who's going to be as bold, as rude, as fast moving, etc. And so that's going to take a special kind of leader. I don't know whether the Dems have it in them, to be honest, in the midterms. I don't see much evidence that they do. Gavin Newsom as a presidential candidate, possibly sounding about right, he's sounding how you have to sound, but that's not going to be in the midterms. So when the midterms happen, probably the Democrats will take power of both houses, or at least one house, and that's enough to sort of stop congressional movement. But Trump is doing things regardless of congressional approval. So it's interesting to see what will happen. I don't quite know what will happen. Like, how will he be reined in by a largely ineffective Democratic leadership? They're pretty ineffective. I vote for the Democrats because I didn't want to vote for Trump, right? I lean a little bit more conservative in my views to some extent, at least from my old country. But a conservative from my old country in the UK is basically a liberal Democrat here, right? Because the whole political system has shifted. And I don't believe in religious decisions about abortion and those sort of things. I don't believe, I don't believe this concept of small government because it doesn't mean small government. I don't believe. I believe guns should be controlled. I believe that the health system should not be run as a for-profit enterprise. So in a lot of my positions, I could have remained as a conservative in the UK. Might have done. I don't know if I would have done these days, but might have done in the UK. But in the US, no, you're not a conservative in the US with the positions that I hold. So that left me a little bit sort of, undecided. But I don't believe, I'm not as far left as a Bernie or an AOC or something like that. I don't believe in those views. But in my ideal Congress, you would have very powerful leadership from both sides, because I believe we're best served when you have good, honest conversation from both extremes and from the middle, and you arrive somewhere in the middle with compromise. That's how I believe government should be run. This bunch of geezers just like do whatever the hell they want. Joel, I woke today and thought about you in Cameroon, and I thought about the DV-27. Still hoping Trump allow me to take my position of DV. He refused me in 2018 with case number AF41803. Wow, that sucks. Sorry, man, but yeah, good luck with that, Joel. From Asia, specifically Nepal, February DV interviews are not scheduled yet. Do you have any update on when the scheduling might begin? I don't know. It's going to be very difficult for me to ever predict now what the next thing will be from any country. So we have to wait and see. You're going to hear those words from me a lot over the next few months. Wait and see. That's all we can do. Okay, Simon, AS246. Do you think that I will have a chance to get 2NL? Yeah, Amman was not scheduling well, but that could change, right? So again, I don't know. Again, wait and see. I don't know what Amman is going to do either. Good luck with that. Good morning, Britt from Zimbabwe, and my number is 2026 AF XXXXX. That's useful. Thank you. It's clear as mud now. I know that you're in Africa and you're in 2026. That's it. That's all I got from your number. If you obfuscate, if you hide all of the numbers, I don't know anything, do I? Should I forget about this visa thing? No, don't forget about this visa thing, Wayne. Just try and be a little bit more clear when you ask me a question, though. Morning, Yasser. How are you doing? Cairo Embassy issued more than 800 visas so far. As that means they might reach the maximum number of visas to be issued before March. If they reach 3,600 like 2025. Not before March, no. Firstly, they're not going to be issuing visas while the pause is on, right? They could continue to interview, of course. But no, I don't think they'll, when these caps are not reached so early in the year, they normally sort of spread the processing out. They don't want to do all of their processing in a 6-month period. Why would they have people who are, their staff insanely busy for 6 months of the year and then doing nothing for the rest of the year? They wouldn't do that. They staff saying, okay, in order to do this much work during the year, we're going to spread out all of that work over a 10 to 12 month period. And that's why they put accept numbers in place on certain countries sometimes to spread out the work over the year. So the caps won't be reached as early as March, no. But could they reach the caps before the end of the year? Yeah, absolutely. They have the capacity to do that, right? Good morning. I will attend my appointment on Monday the 5th. EU number between 1,000 and 1,300. Is there a recommendation for how much money in savings I need to show as proof of financial independence? Ed Novak. But basically, for about 10 years now, I've been telling people to show about $10,000 US dollars in savings. So what would that be? About 8,500. You're in London, right? Why do I think you're in London? I don't know. But about $10,000 US per person. So if it's a family of 4, you should be able to show $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, right? I spent $40,000 in the first 6 weeks I was here in 2014. I spent $40,000 on God knows what. I can't remember what, but I remember my bed was like $7,000 or something stupid. But it's expensive when you move to America and you're renting you've got to rent a hotel, and then you're moving into an apartment or a house. We moved to a house and we rented a house. So we had to pay, first month's deposit, last month's or whatever, and rent up front. So, there's a ton of money you spend when you go there. And the house we got was a brand new house. And so it's completely empty, no furniture there whatsoever. And so we had to buy beds and sofas and cutlery and everything else. And even though we had shipped stuff from the UK, that stuff that we had shipped didn't arrive for 3 months. So, so we went and bought a bunch of stuff. We were out every day of the week spending, $500, $600, $700 a day on things like plates and cups and bullshit like that. So, it's expensive. And having 10,000 US dollars per person might sound like a lot of money to you, but honestly, it's not a lot of money. Now, you'll survive within the budget you have. Obviously, not everyone has that sort of budget. But if you're asking me, what would an American perspective be about how much money is enough savings, they're probably thinking at least $10,000. Now, remember, I started off saying, I've been saying this $10,000 for years. $10,000 10 years ago and 13 years ago when I started talking about DV lottery was a lot more valuable than it is these days, right? $10,000 doesn't go very far these days. So it wouldn't surprise me if that number is becoming a bit old and tired. If you don't have that amount of money, you should be providing an I-134, which is an affidavit of support from someone in the USA. Okay. Good morning, sir, from Liberia. My case number is current AF36046 in February. I want to know when my 2NL will reach me in my email. I don't know, 2:30. 2:30 is probably when it's going to arrive. I don't know. Do have a look at the DV charts information. Let's have a look at some things. Let's have a look at DV charts. I want to show something that that Zarthisius has done. God bless Zarthisius. Really, what a great guy. And I'm very, very sad that we're going to start to lose information in a sense. But what he did for us is some of you will now see this thing and notice that that's new. Zarthisius has talked about these new holes as being dark holes. I like the word, actually. I like how he's sort of said that. So in his data, he's now added this color and these blobs to show where cases have disappeared, right? They've become a hole, so now they're a dark hole. I love this. It's like a, you know, black hole or something, or, you know, dark matter. It's got all that connotation. And so I'm now convinced we should be calling these dark holes, right? So this is where a case has disappeared. We knew that in the January the 1st file, that case existed. And later on, that case looks like a hole. That's a dark hole. And you can see it in the data as well. You can see, if I show you, which one should I show you? This one. What he's done is he has now added a status. So there are various statuses, right? And I'm hoping you all know these. Maybe I'll just quickly run through it, right? So AP is the status that CEAC shows when your visa is being printed. Dark is these new cases where they were in the file on January the 1st, and now later they're going to be removed. I've asked Zarthisius to add a date column in here so that we can see what date they were removed, and that's how we'll know, you know, we'll be able to keep track of when those cases disappeared, right? In transit is the status that is shown when KCC has scheduled an interview. They send electronically, they send your file to the embassy, but the embassy has to mark it as being received. Now, they've received the file. It's not that it hasn't been received. It's just that they have to update CEAC system with that status. When they update it, it gets updated to ready status. But before they update it, when KCC have sent it, it's in transit. That's the status that shows that KCC have sent that out. Then in a normal year, we see issued, obvious what that is. None is a hole. If you see a status in Zarthisius file of none, that means it's a hole, right? And what is a hole, by the way? I had a couple of confused people this morning. A hole is nothing to do with whether the person has submitted the DS-260 or not. A hole was a case that was numerically within the range. Let's say, you know, we're talking about Oceania, which has cases up to 3,300, right? The first 3,300 cases has roughly about half of those cases are holes. That means those cases were eliminated from the process for some reason. They're either fraudulent entries, things like duplicate entries and so on, or they were from limited countries, not the case in Oceania. There's no limited countries in Oceania or South America. Or most likely, they messed up their photos, right? And they took a bad photo, a non-compliant photo, either for the main applicant or for one of the derivatives. In that case, KCC or whoever runs the process, it's really Department of State reject that case, even though numerically that case was in the first 3,300 cases and therefore was a winner. They were then ejected, you know, from the results, And when those people went in on May 5th or whatever it was, those people saw you have not been selected, same as anybody else that really wasn't selected. And so those cases are what we've always called holes, right? They're rejections prior to the announcement of the results. Okay, we now have a new type of hole, which is the dark hole. And that's cases that were there on January the 1st and then will later disappear. And sooner or later, all of these cases are going to disappear, all of the scheduled cases. So that's what we've got to look forward to. In terms of the other statuses here, ready, I already explained. Refused, you can be permanently refused, or you can be refused on 221G. 221G is a temporary refusal, and it can be overcome. It might be because you have a missing document, or because they ask you to fill in a background check form to do further background checking. That's called the DS 5535. And so there's a type of processing that happens, typically most of the time that happens after the interview has taken place. In a couple of embassies, actually, you can go on to 221G before the interview even takes place. Moscow used to do that when they were running. So we see that a lot in the Russian cases still. We see that. We see cases going to 221G before the interview happens. And then lastly in here, transfer, right? Transfer is when a case is being transferred from one embassy to another. Okay, so those are the statuses. So you can see in Zarthisius's file and also online, you can see the cases that have gone dark. And soon we'll be able to track the dates of those, of when those cases were noted as being dark cases, right? And that's going to be somewhat interesting. It'll be helpful to see, we'll be able to tell how many 2NLs are going out per region. But with an in-transit case in particular, we didn't know anything about that case. So we didn't know how many derivatives there were and that sort of thing on that case. So it's going to become more and more annoying. And then just to sort of make it clear, like I say, God bless him, Zarth is putting that black color in here for the dark cases so that we can see where cases start to drop off, and that they're not real holes, they're dark holes. Okay, so hopefully you'll find that useful. Are there any lawsuits, and do you think when do you think the lawyers will go to courts? Okay, in my opinion, we should not be using lawsuits against the pause. I don't believe there's any need to at the moment. The pause has been in place now for what, 2 weeks. If it's a temporary pause, it'll be released much faster. The pause will be over much faster than any lawsuit can be filed to challenge the pause. So why would you file a lawsuit? Lawsuits are expensive. Why would you do that? Now, let me put a lawyer's hat on for a minute. The lawyers obviously want to challenge that perspective, and they want to do work. I mean, lawyers actually earn their money from suing people, right? They don't, that's how they earn their money. So their perspective is going to be a little bit different to mine. I use lawyers to file lawsuits, like the UK lawsuit that I filed last year that got UK winners selected. I will use lawyers to achieve a result when I think a result can be achieved, right? I was heavily involved in the DV 2020 and 2021 lawsuits, and I built the original sort of interest list for AILA to use to actually file the Gomez lawsuit. I was involved right from the beginning on all of those lawsuits. So I'm a believer in lawsuits when it makes sense. I don't believe in filing lawsuits willy-nilly just for no good reason. And right now, a lawsuit against the pause, I don't think is worth doing. If the pause continued for a long time and started to cause serious doubts that we were going to get cases adjudicated this year, that would be a different answer. But they're still scheduling interviews. They're still conducting interviews. They're just pausing, right? So why would you litigate that? I don't think it makes sense to litigate that. Now, I'm sure Curtis wouldn't agree with me. I'm quite certain he wouldn't agree with me. And I don't mean to be, not wishing to cause any offense of any of the lawyers. They are capable in what they do. But I think you have to be pragmatic about this. Don't spend a lot of time and money on a lawsuit that has no real benefit. Doesn't make sense. Just be calm and patient. Okay. Joe, how you doing? I know you don't like predicting and speculating. Oh, geez. So do I. But I don't. But don't you think DOS ought to come up with new, more stringent requirements for DV27 in order to satisfy Rubio? No, not really. The requirements will be introduced in terms of the processing, Joe. They're almost certain to find some improvement in the processing, but they already did that in the first Trump presidency. The DS5535 was introduced, and it's like an enhanced background check. So that they already do quite a lot of background checking. This whole thing that happened with the Brown University MIT professor, this guy from Portugal, that was just a personal thing. It was nothing to do with terrorism. We're very quick to sort of jump to domestic terrorism as being, as Americans are quick to jump to that as being the answer for everything. Meanwhile, we have a domestic terrorist sitting in the White House, So I don't know. To me, I don't think they're going to come up with any real improvements to the process because, what could they do? But we'll wait and see. I mean, I'll watch with interest. Will it happen in time for DV27? No, it won't happen in time for that. They could put in background checking changes, but nothing that will improve the draw process. They're not going. Legally, the draw process is described by law, right? So it's not something they can mess with too much. They can do the processing. They can mess around with the processing a bit because that's not described by law. That's an administrative function. The law says to a bunch of people, you have to run the lottery, and they have to run the lottery this way. They have to do the quota calculation this way, and so on. And here are the rules about when someone is eligible and when someone is ineligible. Right? The law says all those things. Then the administrators say, okay, that's the rules, that's the big playbook we're being given. Now we'll write the small rules, the regulations, the stuff we see in the Foreign Affairs Manual and so on. They are free to interpret the overall direction and implement individual details about that as an administrative function. And so that's what they'll mess with. Which is, okay, well, how much background checking can we do? Can we do more? Can we check people to see that they're not going to go off the road, and go mental in eight years after they get their green cards? How are you going to figure that out? Right? So, so I don't think they're going to make any real sort of changes, Joe. I mean, I'm an American citizen. I want a safe immigration process. Of course I do. But I think it was already pretty safe, to be perfectly honest with you. If you think about the number of people that have come through the diversity visa lottery, over the last 25 years, what's that? 1.25 million people came through that program over the last 25 years, right? Out of that 1.25 million people, we had a terrorist incident in 2017, which is the first time Trump started talking about a DV lottery. Those winners had come sort of through the DV lottery. Those terrorists had come through the DV lottery. They're not winners, they were losers. And then we have this guy from Portugal, right, which is not a terrorism incident either. So really we have one terrorism incident out of 1.25 million people. That's actually far safer. I would rather hang around with DV lottery candidates all day long rather than be surrounded by lunatic Americans. Because Americans, if you took 1.25 million Americans, you'd have a fair amount of lunatics in that group. And some of those would be domestic terrorists and right-wing nutcases or left-wing nutcases. And some of them would have guns and some of them would have killed people. And, so I don't think we've got much of a problem with DV lottery winners, to be honest. I'm sure they've broken the law. Out of the 1.25 million people, they've broken the law, but are they running around doing terrorism stuff? No, not as much as the average American, to be honest. So it's kind of nuts. Anyway, yes, so many families have many derivatives. Does each family count as one, or each derivative counts as extra visa? Cairo is going too fast. Thanks. A mum, let's say dad wins, right? And mum's there and there's 2 kids. That's 4 visas out of the 52,000 visas. I say 52,000. Hopefully you've all got the message when the program was announced in terms of the per country winners. They explained in there that the 55,000 is reduced down to, I think it's 51,850. So call it 52,000. And because there's another program, it's Nicara, and an add-on program that have taken visas out of our pot. So there's only 52,000 visas, but those 52,000 include derivatives. So yeah, mum, dad, and 2 kids, that's 4 of the 52,000. Okay. I predict the pause will be lifted after 30 days so 23rd of January. Okay. I'll maybe that's right. I don't know. Hi, Simon. If I go through interview and they put me on 221G since they're on pause, can I still ask the officer if the answer is positive or negative? Yeah, like everybody likes to. I mean, they will discuss that with you, right? They will make that clear. They won't just sort of like say nothing. They'll usually say something like, everything looks good to me. I would approve you except for this pause thing, right? So, and that's how they explain it. These people are human. They're nice people. They're not looking to confuse you or be nasty. And if they don't make it clear, you can ask them. Yeah, you can ask for clarification. Just understand that their verbal approval doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean you're actually approved. It's just a verbal comment from them. Okay, be careful with that. Do you think the pause will delay Greencard and SSN entered a week ago? It won't affect the SSN, which is more important, actually. The Greencard is not important, but the you don't need the Greencard to show that you're a lawful permanent resident, and you've got your status anyway. But you do need the social security number to do things like get a job, open bank accounts, and so on. So the pause won't affect the SSN. That's a totally different agency that produces that. Green cards are probably going to be delayed a bit, I would say, yes. Yassine, thank you so much for this live. Some DV winners who have a green card in the USA and apply for citizenship, their interviews got cancelled or oath ceremony is cancelled. Do you have any idea why that's happening? Yeah, they're cancelling some oath ceremonies, particularly around travel ban countries. But I expect all sorts of stupidity from our current administration. Cancelling oath interviews and that sort of thing is just it's a way to niggle at people. It's a way to show your power and that sort of thing. It doesn't mean anything in the long term. Those people will still be, you can actually sue them. You can sue if they don't give you the oath ceremony and you've gone through the whole process. You can sue them if you want. I just think you should just wait, in all honesty. I wouldn't put, I don't, the stuff that Noam did, Noam announced, and her second in command announced that they wouldn't be sending out green cards. And I instantly went back to them directly and to this stupid woman, Trisha, her name is, I think. You should watch her. She's like the assistant secretary, to Noam. And she sounds like a little girl. My daughter sounds much more intelligent and mature than this little girl who's been given all this power and thinks she knows what she's talking about. And so she said, we're not going to give, she was saying to a journalist, well-known journalist, we're not going to give out green cards. So I responded to that saying, what are you talking about? It's just an administrative function you're doing. You have no real authority there. Those people are already lawful permanent residents. If you refuse to give them their green cards, you've caused nothing but hassle for yourselves, because those people are now going to be wanting to get their passport stamped in a year's time when their visa runs out, and you'll have to do that because that's your job, you stupid girl. So yeah, I hate that sort of jumped up little upstart that thinks they've got some power. Interview February 4th, medical costs 1,500. If suspension ends in 5 months, only 1 month left. How to plan life this way? That's ridiculous. Look, you can feel free to believe that the pause will last 5 months, and make yourself upset if you want. You can do that for sure. But there's no reason to think that the pause is going to last 5 months, right? There's no reason to think that. So honestly, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you want to, you can delay the medicals. And in some countries, not all countries, but in some countries, you can attend the interview for the visa without having performed the medicals. You can do it the different way around if you want, right? Of course, you'll delay yourself if you do that. You'll cause yourself more aggravation if you do that. And if you listen to what I'm saying, you'll understand that I believe the pause will be relatively short. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I will be, in all honesty. So I think it's going to be a short pause. And if I were you, I would have attended the medical and the interview so that I could get my my issuance as fast as possible at the end. If you want to make it more difficult later, you can do, but it's up to you. I've applied visa, but on top there is a stamp of cancel without prejudice. When you were in an odd situation where, let's say you attended the interview around about December 15th or something, and around about December 18th and 19th is when the pause was introduced. If your passport was at the embassy during that time period, and all of a sudden they got the notification from Department of State to say, hey, don't issue any more visas. If they had printed the visa and put it into your passport, but they had not sent it to you yet, then they write on there, they cancel the visa without prejudice. The without prejudice means that there is no harm caused, there is no problem, and that visa can be reprinted later when they're issuing visas. But so don't worry about the sort of cancel without prejudice, what it means. But if you Google that, cancel without prejudice in the context of visas, you'll get an answer similar to what I just gave. It just means that they've canceled this particular visa, but not because you broke any rules or, not saying that you can't have a visa later. They will reprint that visa for you later on. Okay. Hi, Simon. Did you get any indication that new interviews were scheduled in December? Yes, they were. Just wondering, as we're on the threshold of getting called, hopefully, based on CEAC data from the last time. Happy New Year. Yeah, definitely. We heard from quite a lot of embassies, people at quite a lot of embassies. 2NLs were going out on the 29th, the 30th, I think. So, yes, February interviews were being arranged for sure. Vienna Council says people don't got medical interviews. We will tell you when in the interview. Okay, that's what I was just saying. So in Vienna, they're telling you, it sounds like, turn up for the interview, but don't do your medical yet. That's a reasonable way to do things. It's just, I like that the embassy, I like Vienna embassy actually, by the way. They've done very well in the past. They've helped people in the past. I like how they've operated. So, that's fine. In a little embassy like that, it isn't going to create a big hassle for a bunch of people to suddenly need their medical appointment to be sort of pushed back to a later date. In a big embassy, I hope they don't do that, because if you have everybody that's interviewing in February sort of delays their medical, and then let's say in March or April, they need to reschedule that because visas are being issued, then that will overwhelm the physicians, and they won't have as many appointments available for other people from that time period. So it will impact us later. So I would rather people do their medicals earlier, but in Vienna, it's such a small embassy, it doesn't matter. The physicians are not going to get overwhelmed by half a dozen people that decide to delay their medical. That's not going to be a problem. Okay. Is there any chance to get visa if Uzbekistan citizen changes location for interview for another country? Some people changed into Poland. In Uzbekistan, people are being interviewed without visas. Nobody's getting visas at the moment, okay? It's not specific to Uzbekistan. Nobody's being given visas. There are no visas being issued anywhere at any embassies. Okay, so just be patient. Do you have any insights that this current pause is delaying the issuance of physical green cards? Yeah, already talked about that. Happy New Year. You're very welcome, Kenzie. Good news. Venezuela got some freedom. Yeah, okay. I like the smile there. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some mixed reviews about that. I mean, no fan of Maduro or that sort of, that type of regime and the authoritarian regime. But if you look at the things that made them into an authoritarian regime, they're the same things that are going on in America today. Describing news outlets as fake news because they say something you don't like, taking people's freedom away because they're saying something you don't like, revoking visas from students that are visiting the country, studying this country, because those students exercise their freedom of speech, which they have been told for years they're allowed to do, right? And so, but all of a sudden we start revoking visas and stuff. So when you start behaving like an authoritarian regime, it's not a good thing. No matter whether your politics are left or right, it's not a good thing. But anyway, so Venezuela is getting a little taste of freedom. Yeah, maybe. My concern has to do with the selectees. Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand your question, Albert. The embassy could still decide to wait until the pause is lifted to begin interviews. No, would you say it's ideal? I hope they don't. But yes, some embassies could say that. It's up to them, as I described earlier in this video session. They are able to set their own capacity. Okay, I'm going to try and tear through some of these questions now. Hello, Simon. How are you? I'm from Ethiopia. Case number is 21942. I'm killing an angel now. I think it's recent. Do you think? Will you get the 2NL this month or February? I don't know. You have to wait and see. 2NL released, or is that pause too? No, 2NLs are happening. Hi. DV27 will still happen. Yes. Europe resident interview in Asian home country. If 221G, can applicant take PP back? PP meaning passport. Yes, you can do that. It will just delay the approval or the printing of the visa later, because when they're ready to issue your visa, they're going to have to contact you. You're going to have to get the passport back to them, and that will cause some delay, right? Not the end of the world, but just a little bit of delay. Hi, Simon. You expected DV27 to start before the end of 25? Yeah. As you see, things happen beyond what logic suggests. Do you still exclude that this admin won't violate the law skipping DV27? Yeah, I keep saying it, Justin. I don't even want to go into it. I'll just waste time with you. It's very clear what's happening, Justin. I don't know. So yes, I did expect it to be announced before the end of 25. Does that mean that it won't happen? Of course not. Goodness sake, the laws are still the same laws, Justin. So anyway, is there a number of visas that are given for each region, like Central Asia? There is a quota system described in the law process, yes. And it means that Asia, for example, their quota for this year would be about 8,500 visas. But they won't get that because there's not enough people selected to get that are not travel banned, right? If the travel ban were removed early enough to actually make a difference, then yes, they might be able to issue that number of visas. But I don't think the travel ban will be removed fast enough to help that, and so therefore it's going to be under the 8,500. But yes, the quota is designed to work regionally, not per country. There are no visa quotas per country. Okay. How is the travel ban impacting DV26 based on the latest CEAC data from Zarthisius? Well, it is, Marco. I mean, it's a bit of a vague question, but the travel ban is obviously impacting DV26. Asia has gone current already. There's a freaking impact for you. That's for February interviews. Asia is already current. Do you need to ask about the CEAC data? Not really. You can see the impacts of the travel ban in the visa bulletin. Dear Brit Simon, let's do this one. 2 questions. I indicated my DS260, my wife will join me later. Is she supposed to accompany me to the interview and the medicals? It's up to you. How long do I have to bring it to the US? Right. So it's up to you. I would say that if you take take her to the interview, she could be issued with a visa, and it will have that same 6-month validity that yours will have, 6 months from the date of the medicals, right? If you don't do that, and if you don't get her an interview, you can sometimes schedule an interview for a spouse later on in the year, or derivatives later on in the year, but it's a really unwise thing to do, in my opinion, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? So I don't suggest you do that. I suggest you take your spouse to the interview and get her the visa issued. Then you can enter quickly and start to establish yourself, find a job, find somewhere to live, etc., and then bring your spouse later before the 6-month expiry date on her visa. That's how I would do it if I were you. If you choose not to do that, if you go beyond the end of the year, your only choice at that point is to sponsor her through family-based immigration. And that's going to take a long time, 2 to 5 years, right? So I don't suggest you do that. It's going to be more complicated. It'll be more expensive. It'll be much slower, okay? So I don't suggest you do that, okay? Are they issuing Cameroon embassy 2NLs? No, not yet. Haven't heard any. Will the 2NL be sent to the email address in the DS260? Yes. Is Nairobi embassy still sending 2NLs? Nairobi seems to be doing okay, but I don't. We're gonna lose all of the data, which is why I talked about the local Telegram channels and everything for earlier on. Okay. Tell about your DV photo tool before DV27 starts. Thank you. Let me show that, dvphototool.com. So yep, that's still there, and it's the best way to produce your photo, without a doubt. Like if you want a photo for the DV27, that's what you use. I love Uncle B's rants. Yeah. Hi, Sai. Hope all is well. Based on the recent CEAC data and DV pause, what do you think for a 130K UK selectee? Am I best forgetting the dream now? Ryan, your dream needs to be on the back burner. It always has been on the back burner, right? We now have the CEAC data that sort of provides the information that I already knew. I already knew that the distribution of cases looked appropriate to me across that range. We now have that distribution. We know exactly how many people are selected, how many cases there are, etc. In the UK. The big question for you is still the same question it's ever been, Ryan. It's like, will Europe go current or not? They're not going to make the UK current on its own. You'll never see, except UK 189,000. You're not going to see that, right? Or except UK current. They're not going to make the UK current and not the rest of Europe. It's going to be the other way around if it's anything at all, right? So it'll be Europe will go current. If Europe goes current, and that's a big if Europe goes current, then those UK high winners are the same as any other case. And then what happens is it's up to the embassy to see how many of those cases they can handle, right? If the UK went current in, let's say, the final month, sorry, if Europe goes current in the final month, there are about 500 odd cases after 48,000, right? So let's say let's say EU went current in, let's say, the last 2 months. And in July, it had already got to, let's say, 40,000, which is a big jump from where it is now. So I'm being very optimistic right now, right? But let's say it got to 40,000 for July interviews. And then in August and September, Europe was current, right? Most of the 540 cases, I think it is, that are between 48,000 and 189,000, including your case, Ryan, most of those 540 cases or something would have submitted their DS260s and would be interested in having interviews. But that means that there'd probably be something like 300 to 400 cases that the embassies would suddenly need to schedule. That is way beyond the capacity that I'd expect London Embassy to dedicate to DV cases. And so we wouldn't get to 189,000, and we probably wouldn't get to 130,000 in that scenario, right? Which is why it's important you look at the file and say how many cases are before you between 48,000, which is where Europe runs out, and your case number. And I think it's going to be a significant number of cases. And then it's like, okay, so even if the region goes current, which would be miraculous, you still have an embassy capacity problem. Okay, and so it's looking pretty bleak, put it like that. But miracles sometimes in this process do happen. That we can't always be certain, what will happen, and a lot of it depends how EU progresses between now and, let's say, July and August. Right, the faster it goes, the better it is for you. The faster the EU bulletin goes, the better it is for you. Okay. So keep an eye on it. Unfortunately, we're not going to have good CEAC data now, so it's going to be much harder to watch, but I'm sure we'll be discussing this again, Ryan. Good luck. Fingers crossed for you. Any news about DV27 and banned countries? Banned countries I already talked about both those things. My name is Slobodan Lik, and I come from Serbia, Europa. I was drawn for DV26 under number X Spain 26. X Spain 26 15 33 40. Well, 430. What does the program pause apply to my case? Yeah, the program. Okay, long way of asking, with lots of extraneous detail I didn't need. Is the pause still going? Yes, the pause is still going. It does apply to your case. It applies to all cases. You can be scheduled for interview once you're current. You're not current yet, but you can be scheduled for interview during the pause, but you won't be issued a visa during the pause. Okay, Slobodan? Okay. Europe resident interview in Asian home country. Already talked about that. 2NLs from embassy in Yaoundé start being sent in January, I guess. I hope so. I don't know. Algerian from Canada wants to know more about DV27. It's not on yet. We have to wait for the announcement. The embassy can still decide to wait until the pause is lifted to begin interviews, right? Would you say it's ideal? You've asked that before. Yes, they can do that. Did it start? Did green literally start? Hi, advice to those who are going to go into the interview this week. I would attend the interviews as normal. I would not avoid the interviews. I would attend the interviews personally. It's up to you. I've explained my perspective about that in this video. The embassy can, oh dear, I keep repeating the same question. Okay, Iranian, living in Turkey for 25 years, have my Turkish passport for 18 years. The embassy will print DV visa on my Iranian passport. No, give them the Turkish passport. Been traveling to the US for 14 years. Any idea on this? Give them the Turkish passport. You have your Turkish passport. As an Iranian, you are barred, you're travel banned, right? As a Turkish passport holder, you can travel. So you need to travel on that Turkish passport. So get at the interview, hand over your Turkish passport, not your Iranian one. Obviously, you can show your Iranian one, but show them the Turkish one if you want to be able to get the visa. Most US embassies in Africa are backlogged. Why should KC in? Didn't finish it. No. What about CSB, Casablanca, Morocco performance this year? Do you think they will accelerate it? I don't know. Would you tell me the best consulate to go? Look, you can't move consulates very easily right now. So even though we don't have the usual information about which embassies are performing well and that sort of thing, it doesn't really matter anyway, because you can't just pick and choose your embassy anymore. Those days are gone. You actually have to move countries and prove that you're resident in that country in order to get KCC to move you. Okay. Let's see. Just see if there's any new questions. Hundreds of dollars for a freaking plate. No. For several plates, but yeah. Is it okay to take the bill of gold that I bought? Is it okay to take bill of gold that I bought kind of investment as financial independence? I mean, when you say bill of gold, you literally don't mean a piece of gold. Please, God, don't turn up in an interview with a chunk of gold. That would be stupid, right? I mean, just unsafe. Like, don't walk around with gold. If you mean an account where gold is held, that's sort of somewhat semi-liquid. Gold is considered semi-liquid. It's like having it in a brokerage account or anything else. You can liquidate that gold pretty much immediately, right? So it's just a commodity you're holding in a brokerage account, and therefore it's semi-liquid asset. So that's fine. If it's physical gold, that's not quite the same thing, right? Is gold purchase bill acceptable as financial proof? No. So gold purchase means you're holding on to some jewelry or something. That's not, no. They don't want to sit there and have you bring jewelry or gold or physical objects like that into the interview, and for them to be expected to value that. That's not, no, that's not okay. I applied for the diversity visa while I was in Jordan, and after submitting the application, I traveled to Syria. Does this affect my application any other way? Should I request to unlock my DS260? No, you don't have to unlock because you've traveled. If you unlocked to correct something else, then you would update your travel. But you don't have to update things, small things that go on in your life. So traveling to another country after you've submitted the DS260, changing your job, even moving house, is not very important. None of that is very important. Getting married, having a baby, yes, those things are significant life events, or getting divorced or whatever. So change of marital status, change of the derivatives. For those things, you should unlock and correct your DS260. And while you've got your DS260 unlocked and before you resubmit it, then you update the other things like your travel history and so on, right? But you don't need to do that for normal cases, okay? Is there a chance that DV27 will open? Yes, it's about 99.9999% certainty. Predict DV27 window period and results release date. I don't know. I'm not going to try and predict that. I was hoping it was going to be by the end of the year, 25. It wasn't. There's a ticking clock. They have to get on with it, but it's not been announced yet, so I don't know. What about a lawsuit to compel the opening of the DV27 lottery application? There must be people willing to contribute towards the legal costs. Is this correct? Again, that's another unwise thing, to be honest with you. But also, it's like, yes, how do you... So I've discussed this with Curtis, and basically it's like, how do you monetize it? How do you get the money available? In order to compel that that case, you'd need to start a lawsuit, which will cost, let's say it costs $20,000 to start a lawsuit. How do you get that $20,000? I already spent a lot of money in 2025 on the UK lawsuit. I'm not in the mood to spend more of my own money on that lawsuit, right? So how do we do that? We'd have to crowdfund it, right? Well, you've only got a 1 in 100 chance of being selected. So who's going to pay to crowdfund that, right? It seems like we'd have to have a lot of very small contributions. It would be a lot of money we'd have to raise, 20 grand, with a great number of small contributions. The problem with that is, if I were to do it, for example, and I could do that, I could start a GoFundMe or whatever. And I've got a wide enough audience that we could probably raise that money, but it's only a probably, right? And so let's say I get halfway through raising that money. I'm not going to, in the UK lawsuit, I put all the money down on day one of the lawsuit. And I asked for people to support me and share some of the cost. And some people did, and I got some of the cost covered, but it still cost me money, right? But I had to start the lawsuit on day one with all of the money. And so I was fully financially committed to that cost from day one, right? And so what am I going to do? If I do a GoFundMe, I can't give the money back. That's the problem. So let's say I need $20,000 to start the lawsuit. I either commit to paying that $20,000 on day one, and honestly, I'm not prepared to do that because I think it's going to happen anyway. Or I say, okay, I'll raise the money first and then start the lawsuit. But if I do that, and let's say I raise $10,000, what do I do with that $10,000? Because it's not enough to start the lawsuit, right? So I'm not going to start the lawsuit. And by the way, maybe DV27 starts. Then what do I do with that money? Do I just keep it? Well, thank you very much. It will help me towards the cost of the earlier lawsuit. But I don't think my public, my subscribers and so on, I don't think you would be very happy with me just keeping the $10,000, right? So it kind of means that I'd have to go all the way and get the $20,000 or get nothing at all. So that's kind of the problem. This is the problem that is on my mind about that lawsuit. And basically, I think that DV27 is going to happen anyway, whether we litigate it or not. So, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind about that, but and I'd have to do that. Changing the mind, I'd have to do that soon. But it does worry me that I would start collecting money from a GoFundMe or something like that, and it wouldn't be enough to start the lawsuit, so the lawsuit doesn't start, but I'm sitting there on the money, and that feels wrong. I've never been in this, hobby to make money. This is not how I make my living. I don't want to make money out of you people. That's not what I want to do, right? I'm actually, I'm thinking about retirement and everything else. I'm not interested in earning more money from any sort of job. Thank you very much. Okay, so don't you think this pause is a tactic to cause backlog and reduce the number of visas issued with tight deadlines of 9:30? And John, let's just think through that process. Why do you think that that's a tactic? Why would they be? I don't know. I don't know. I can be bothered. No, I don't think that's a tactic to reduce the number of visas issued. Why do you think they care? They don't have to issue the bloody visas. They don't have to do any work. They're not legally required to do the work. Why do they have to come up with this tactic, as you think there is, this complicated tactic of having some guy from Portugal go and murder 3 people and then kill himself so that they could introduce the pause to come up with this excuse in order to not issue the visas, when actually they could just not issue the bloody visas, John. They don't have to issue the visas, right? They don't need the tactic. They don't need all this background bullshit, right? So no, you're putting 2 and 2 together and making 17. No, it's not about that. Greetings, Simons. Are cases in countries under partial ban directly refused or placed under 221G in case the ban is lifted? A mixed bag, as I understand it. Some are being refused permanently, and some are being given 221G, as I understand it. But I'm not 100% sure of that. But that was my understanding. But unfortunately, with the data, we can't really tell. But it does seem that that's the way they're operating. Now, if the travel ban were lifted and you were refused permanently, then that would be a bit more complicated to reopen that case than if you're on 221G. That's true. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. You can have a refused case turned back to issued, even though it was a permanent refusal. So, 100K subscribers. Yes, indeed. Yeah. You received 2NL interview for 3/2/26. I read that the American way. I thought it was March. I would go to your interview. Go attend your interview. I've explained why in this video. Okay. Do you stand a chance with Nepal 8,900? Yes. The highest case number in Nepal is about 13,000. So you're significantly below the sort of maximum. That means that you've got a good chance of getting. You will get current, and you've got a good chance of getting your interview. What is the Telegram channel name link for the DV26 group? Let me get that. I'll put that in the chat right now. There you go. Web Fiji, that's the DV26. I believe in you, Simon. The pause will last for a few months and then things will get going. Still hopeful for South America. The capacity from Lima and GYE seems good. Yeah, I agree. Oh, that's sweet of you. Congrats to the 100K subs. That donation there. Coffee. That's going to buy me coffee in Spain next time I'm there. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for your support. 2023 winner now in the States. Awesome. Love that. Trump loyalist, now an ambassador in Yaoundé, related to slowness of Yaoundé, possibly. If you're a Trump loyalist, then yeah. But, I don't know. I don't know if that's the reason. We don't know. Since there's a suspension on DV26, can a person with a current case number request to open a DS260 to add a newborn baby? Possibly. It depends whether they've been processed or not. Once your number is current and the DS260 was already processed, they'll move you to stage 4, which is AV status, and then they send you an email saying something like, your number is current for interview processing. And when you get that email, they'll no longer unlock your DS260. In that scenario, all you can do to add the baby is wait until you're scheduled and then communicate to the embassy before your interview and ask if you can add the child that way. Okay. Simon, do people from Europe have problems crossing the US border for the first time under the DV25 program? No. I chose to activate my green card in February. Need to do this until March. No, there's no problems. People are entering. No problems. Don't worry about it. Do you think there's a realistic chance EU could go current? I live in a country which didn't have any capacity problems in the past. My number is about 46,000. Yeah, so you need, Brian, you need EU to go current. I'm going to look at the numbers. I'm going to do the math. But it is all about the behavior of the government, right? It's about the travel bans. It's about the pause. It's about, you know, whether the embassies are going to be active or not. So it's really very, very difficult to guess. I don't know is the honest answer right now. I'll have to have a look at the math, but I don't think they've done enough so far to show us that they can get to current. You know, we'll have to wait and see, but it's not looking that good. Happy New Year, Simon. I'm EU 27K. Do these embassy capacities anyhow affect AOS? No, it doesn't affect AOS at all. Does it mean that it's safer and easier to proceed through AOS with such high case numbers? AOS is a good idea if you're in the States already. There are some advantages to adjustment of status. You've got more legal rights. You can accelerate your case a little bit. It's a much more nerve-wracking method, I have to say. It's sort of, you know, with the consular processing, you wait for your appointment, then you get your appointment and you kind of relax, and then you're relaxed for that 2-month period before your interview. With adjustment of status, you're like nervous all the time until you finally hear about your interview date, and then that's usually a big anticlimax. It just, you know, you go to your interview and you get the new card being produced message. It's anticlimactic, but to get to that point, it's a you know, big mental stress in adjustment to status. You have to, you know, weigh it up. Make sure if you do go through adjustment to status, make sure you're following the advice of someone's mum. That's a particular person who runs a forum, forums.immigration.com. She's got an AOS specific thread and fantastic information in that thread. She's a wonderful person, very helpful, very, very knowledgeable about DV related adjustment of status. Using her information, you don't need a lawyer, because, you know, she knows more about lawyers when it comes to more about the DV lottery process than lawyers. So you can just get by with her unless you've got a very complex case for some reason. From your experience in the UK selectees, how friendly are the officers in London Embassy? Got interview in February. Any advices? They're friendly. Dennis, they're very friendly. They like giving out these DV lottery cases because they're simple. They're happy events, you know. They like these cases. It's a very quick interview. It's normally 5 minutes or less. 2 or 3 questions, nothing that you need to prepare for. If you've been honest in your application, they're questions that you can just answer from the top of your head. It's not a test. They've done all the background checking already. You know, it's just a formality. Okay. Did someone receive their 2NL after the program pause for February interview? Yes. Is there a delay? It's normal ongoing. No, well, it's sort of going ahead. Do you think that with these new regulations for DV27, that the people who apply will have more of a chance of actually winning than before? Yes, there'll be less entries because they're implementing the $1 fee and the passport rule. There's likely to be much fewer entries than normal. The last time when they implemented the passport rule, the entries went down by almost half. Now, if there's less entries and they still select the same number of people, then your chance of selection is higher, right? So yes, you've got more chance of winning, but, you know, I think they may also cut down the number of selectees because they're going to run out of time. And one thing they can do to reduce the amount of workload on themselves is reducing the number of selectees. That will reduce the number of DS260s they have to process, and thereby help themselves get through that process more easily. Okay, so we might see, if they're smart, they'll reduce the number of selectees. If they're not smart, well, what am I saying? They're not very smart. We'll probably see a record number of selectees because they're not smart. Happy New Year, sir. I applied for DV lottery years back. However, I didn't qualify. Initially, I would get notifications from DV lottery, but not anymore. What could be the issue? I don't know. No idea, Christine. I'm going to show this question. Thanks, Simon. You are amazing as always. Amazing. Well, that's what I am. Thank you. Yes, I appreciate it. Brit, wife, principal winner, Iranian derivative. The officer approved case. Asked him to use my Turkish passport for visa print. He said he can't. I've changed to my wife of country of eligibility. Any ideas? No, you have to use your Turkish passport. Why he said I can't, I don't know. Maybe it's something about your Turkish passport, but it has to be a valid passport. But the regulations about the travel ban specifically say you have to travel on an unbanned passport. Okay. The lie is more interesting than the truth for the negative ninnies. Yeah. DV27 will start regardless of what you try to say to yourselves. Yep, absolutely. Brit Simon, big congratulations for 100K. Thank you. Will the American, I'm going to try and finish these last few questions. Let me see if I can do that. Will the American Diversity Visa Lottery for DV27 still take place? Yes, it will. 6 months has it ended? No, I don't know what that means. May I present a government valuation report for land property? No. No. And a gold valuation report? No. That's all bullshit. Nobody wants to read your valuations about how much your land and your property is worth or how much your gold is worth. Don't do that. Like, you've got to have liquid assets. That means in a bank account or a brokerage account. That's all. How long do you think it would take to build a reasonable credit score, do you think, Simon? We want to purchase new construction property, but we'll likely have to rent for 12 months with no credit history. New construction is not the same. In the UK, Lucas, new construction was always a good idea in the UK because, roughly speaking, the land would be about a third of the value. The build cost would be about a third of the value. And that top third was somewhat of a discount. It was like, you know, you would make money by buying some land and building on it, right? And you think the same thing is going to apply in America, and it really doesn't. The land is very expensive. I own a piece of land, which I bought when I immigrated here in 2014, exactly as you're thinking. What I did, maybe this is exactly what you're thinking. What I did in 2014 was I came here. I didn't have a credit score, so I couldn't get a mortgage for the first year or so. And so I thought, okay, no problem. I've got $500,000 sitting in the bank account. I'll buy some land. So I bought some land, $500,000. And then, you know, then I started finding out that the cost to build on that was excessive. I mean, it was another $1 million. It was more than double the cost of the land, and that was back in 2014. That piece of land, I sold it, but I sold it, but I gave a mortgage to the guy who owns it, so he's paying me interest. He's paying me 11% interest. This muppet. So that land now will cost about $2 to $2.5 million to build on. And you know, and it's worth probably now 700,000 or something. So the house that you would have to build on there has to be worth a minimum of $3.3 million or something like that. And in order for them to be a profit in that, it would have to be 4 million. Well, houses are not really selling at $4 million where I live yet. You know, houses are about $2 to $3 million in high-end houses, right? I've got a pretty nice house. So mine would be maybe 2.75, 3 million maybe at the most. 2.75 is probably about right. But this house or this piece of land, which would be built on, you know, it's hard to imagine a house in my area going for more than $4 million. So is it worth it? Is it worth going through all the hassle? By the way, permits, like, you wouldn't believe it. So you've got the land cost, you've got the build cost, and you've got the permit cost. permits to build a house in my area for the size house I was going to buy, which was about 4,500, 5,000 square foot. The permit costs years ago was over 300,000. Be more than that now. Permits, just permission to build the bloody house. So it's not as cheap as you think building new construction. If you go to a tract home, and you're just sort of signing up on a, where you've got like show homes and then they're developing some houses, that can be okay, but you don't have the same level of control, and you're not going to make the same money. New construction, generally speaking, is not such a good way to buy houses over here. It will take you about a year to build a credit score, roughly speaking. So I've talked about how you do that in the past. I've talked about how you do that with credit history and so on. You've got to get yourself a credit card, which will report to the credit score agencies. So you buy, you get hold of a card which is called a secured credit card, where you give them $1,000 deposit, and they give you a credit limit up to the amount of your deposit, so $1,000. And you go out and you use that every month, and you buy things on it, and you pay off the bill down to zero every month. You always pay your credit cards down to $0. In my world, that's what you do. I don't carry any balances on any credit cards. I've got $80,000 worth of credit available to me on credit cards, and I pay off all my bills every single month, right? And I pay reliably 100% of the time on every single bill. I've shown my credit score in videos in the past, where you can see my track history of paying my credit cards and my mortgage always 100% of the time on time. Therefore, my credit score is about 800. Roughly speaking, at the moment, about 790, 800. It hovers about that. I don't have very much credit, and if I had more credit, funnily enough, I would have a higher score. But I've only got credit cards. I don't have any car loans or leases or anything like that. So I don't have enough credit of different types to have a really high score, like an 850 or something. But an 800 is almost unheard of over here anyway. So I've already got a pretty high score. But anyway, to get that, you need to do that trick with the secured credit cards that I talked about. Get some secure credit cards, start paying those. Make sure you pay them on time and so on, and get that reported to the credit agencies. Okay. DV 2020. Keep seeing all over Reddit that DV people have their oaths cancelled. Not just DV people, lots of people. Is it even legal? Anything to worry about before filing N400? No, file your N400. As long as you've maintained all the rules and everything else, you haven't broken any of the laws, you'll be fine. They can delay your oath a little bit. So what? Like, it doesn't matter. You'll still become a citizen in due course, right? It will take a little bit longer. Okay. AS numbers above 23,000 can get scheduled. Yes, no problem. There's, you're going to be fine. It just depends on your own embassy. Congrats on the 100K subscribers. Thank you. Will South America be up to date before September? You mean current? My case number is SA 4100. So I hope so, but and it's got a chance, but I just don't know for sure, right? What's this one? Caroline. Hello, Simon. I'm Amara. I'm 9 years old. I love watching your channel with my mother. We wish to go to America one day or another from Kenya. Oh, Amara. Sometimes Uncle Simon says some bad words on this channel. And that's because Uncle Simon didn't realize that there's 9-year-old kids watching this channel. And so Uncle Simon's a naughty boy sometimes. And sometimes my wife, who's the real boss of me, has to tell me off for saying bad words. So you should never say bad words. And if you hear them from me, please just shut your ears, right? If I start ranting about things, if I start getting excited and angry about things, you have to close your ears, okay? Amara, I hope you and your mum one day will come to America. Good luck with that back in Kenya. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm pleased to have you here. Bless. Hi, Simon. Selected case number AF 31,000. Submitted no email. What's the status? New subscriber. So you submitted no email. What's the status? Right. So you just have to wait. You've submitted your DS260. You didn't get an email back. There is a switch in the DS260 that says whether you're going to get an email back. Some people, ask to get a confirmation in the final page. Some people don't. So you don't have to get an email back. It doesn't really matter. They'll process your DS260 and then they'll schedule you for interview. You're already current, so you're fine. Hopefully your embassy is working. That's what you really need to think about now. Is your embassy working? That's the main thing. Okay. Addis, I don't know about Addis, whether they've received any 2NLs for February. I'm not sure about that. I thought they had, but could be wrong. How's Joburg embassy processing with the interview? They're normally pretty good. We're going to start to lose information though, right? Have a look on the DV Charts website to see. Okay. Is it worth to apply for EB3 card? I don't know. I only speak about DV lottery. Uganda, my case number is 21K, but I'm in Abu Dhabi, so you should be okay. Abu Dhabi is normally pretty good. I'm a recent graduate, not much financial stability. Will I be able to strengthen my financial background with my parents' support, maybe with liquidity details and affidavits? The best thing, if your parents aren't living in America already, is they should give you a gift of money to put into your bank account, and a letter to say that that gift is given to you as a non-refundable gift. Right? It's not a loan. Then you're not expected to pay it back. It's your money to help you with your move to America. That can be helpful. If not, get an I-134 from a relative or friend in America. How to get money in the USA? You work, Caroline. You just work. Any expectations on when DV27 will open? No. Just to inquire. Yeah, they're still sent to embassies. Yes. Let's see. I'm just scanning through, see if I've got any new questions here. Hi, Brit Simon. Even if they implement a $5 fee, will still apply. Please don't forget the video you promised to do on the DV application. I will certainly do that video. Okay, I think I got to the end of the questions. That's awesome. Thank you, everyone, for attending the live with me today. We did an hour and 47. I did 2 hours the other day, 2 hours something. So I'm sorry about these long videos, but hopefully some of you find it useful. 300K for a building permit. Yes, absolutely. More than 300,000. There was one particular one drove me nuts, was the, I think it was the water thing. There are various permits. One is, you get various permits. You have to pay some money. In my area, you have to pay some money into an art fund. So you pay for art for the community. That was $10,000. That was based on the size of my prospective home. So I think it was like $10,000 contribution to the local art fund so that they could have public art. There was another donation to the school district. There was another donation. These are all what I call as permits, but they're donations, basically. The local city was 150,000 or something. And then the water meter and the electric meter, the water meter was like $50,000. The electric meter was also expensive. And so, to all these agencies and companies and, they're all, in order to put you on the electric grid, they charge you a fee for the electric meter, right? And it's to do the work, even though the electric and the water was already on my land. My land was a sort of a plot in a road where the other houses had been developed around it. And some guy had bought this piece of land, about a half-acre piece of land, and just sat on it for years because he owned the house behind that house. And he was planning to build, and I think he built another lot as well. He was a builder. But when they put in the road and they built the other houses, they put water and electric into my lot in the same way as every other house. It's not even that they said, that it's going to cost you money to run water to the house. That wasn't the thing. It was to connect the bloody water and the electric to the systems. It's such a ripoff. But, anyway. Oh dear, I see I've just got a lot more questions here. Curious about the AMS location that's missing in the CEAC. Any idea about this, Simon? AMS, AMS being Amsterdam. Is that what it is? So any embassy that doesn't have, what do you mean by AMS? Let's see. Oh, let me just see if I can figure this out. AMS is Amsterdam, is it? Yeah, okay. And it's missing. So what? Yes, okay. So it's missing in that there are no interviews scheduled at Amsterdam. What that means is that Amsterdam didn't take any interviews in October, November, December. They might have taken interviews for the month of February, but we now don't know, right? And so that's why it's missing. There are other embassies as well that don't have any interviews scheduled in that first 3 months. Now, does that mean they're not going to schedule interviews? We don't know, right? We don't know what that really means going forward, which is why communities getting together and talking to each other, people talking to each other, is probably the best way we're going to find out some information in the future. Okay. Let's see. One last question here, because it's an interesting one. Thank you for your question there. AMS is also missing 25 data, which is weird. Oh, yeah. Amsterdam, yeah. So they moved there. They moved. So I think they shifted that. Where did they move to? They redirected, Amsterdam redirected their cases to another embassy. I can't remember which now, another Scandinavian embassy, I think it was, but I can't remember which. Google that. That's what it is. Okay. Hi, Britt Simon. I'm Jamaican by birth, now naturalized in the Bahamas. My husband is a Bahamian. Do you think I have any issues applying, or should I make my husband the applicant? He is Bahamian by birth. Jamaican by birth, now naturalized in the Bahamas. Right. Bahamas is eligible. And so you can both apply, right? So the way it works is you're quite right. As a Jamaican, you're not eligible to enter the lottery, right? And so, but you're naturalized. Nothing to do with your naturalization affects this. But the fact that you're married to someone who's from an eligible country means that you can both enter. So when DV27 opens up, question number 5 is your place of birth. And you must put your place of birth correctly, right? Jamaica in your case. For your husband, he's going to list the Bahamas, right? And then question 6 is country of chargeability. Your husband will leave that question alone because his country of chargeability is going to be his place of birth. Question number 6 says something like your country of chargeability if different from your place of birth. For you, since you'll be charging to the Bahamas through your marriage, you'll answer Bahamas in question 6, right? And then you can both have your entries. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly legitimate. It's called selective cross-charging, elective cross-charging. And cross-charging has been around for a long time and it works perfectly fine. So the only difficulty is that you're then both treated as principal applicants. That's the only difference in that. But if you win rather than him, then he and you will both have to enter the USA on exactly the same day. You both have to pass the interview and so on. If he wins rather than you, then he's the principal applicant, and you're just the derivative, and he could enter ahead of you. You could not enter ahead of him, right? So that's how that works. We'll come to that when you win. But good luck. I'm not quite sure. I've never calculated actually what the chance of selection in North America is, but it would be worth having a look at that. But good luck anyway. All right, everybody. I see I've got more questions, but thank you. Amsterdam interviews are now relocated to Frankfurt. That was the bit I couldn't remember. Thank you for that, Space Girl. Space Girl. So yes, I knew they were. I had them back in my mind. They'd been relocated somewhere, but I couldn't remember where. I spent too much happy time in Amsterdam. That's why. Enter as soon as possible. Any good questions here? No, I think we call that a day. All right. Okay, everybody. Call that a day. Have a nice day, everyone. Please do make sure you're subscribed. I've got over 100,000 subscribers now, so that's a happy thing. And pretty soon on my wall there, you'll see some sort of little plaque. So hopefully in a few weeks' time, we'll see that. All right, everybody. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.